like a Hellcat. Coming like a Hellcat.
It's a little trap for everybody at home. A little trap remix for the kids. Welcome to the show, everybody. Jason Bible, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. Rob is in Corpus today. Catherine is there too. So there are no adults. Well, Chris is here in the office, but there are no adults here. We are free to do what we want. Freedom! I'm just kidding. Today's show is how to win. I've talked a lot about in the last 2 years where this market's headed. If you believe there's a real estate crash coming soon, I can't help you at this point. I mean, we're in la-la land at this point. Got a report here from folks over at Redfin. This popped up on Zero Hedge on Sunday. So last night, Sunday at about 5:30, I spent the weekend with the Boy Scouts canoeing. And I have a awesome tan that I'm probably going to show you guys on Facebook. I got blotchy sunscreen coverage, so it looks like I'm a half-burned piece of meat. But anyways, I'll share that with everybody on the Facebook page. Maybe I'll put it on Instagram too. Home prices soar 18% to an all-time high. A record 58% of houses sell within 2 weeks of listing. This means real estate wholesalers, you're done. If I were a wholesaler getting into this business, I'd be real nervous. A homeowner could put a house on the market, and 60% of the time it'll sell within 2 weeks. A lot of those sell for cash. Real estate wholesaling has got to be a rough place to be right now. 60% of houses sell within 2 weeks or less. This is one of my favorite times to be in the business because only the best survive. Not only survive, they thrive. You've got to be good to produce right now. Real good. I signed 4 more contracts yesterday. I can almost guarantee you nobody else is buying that much. Commercial deal we ended up passing on down in Corpus for our second Texas Real Estate Investment Center location. But we picked up a couple more properties. Times like this are whether you know how good you are. Anybody can be good in a crash if you got a little bit of money. But to be able to play in an up market, that's a whole different game. And I stand by my prediction. This market is nowhere near as hot as it's about to get. This is kiddie stuff compared to 2 years from now. Now, what does that mean? If you are partnered or you are working with an organization of proven excellence, you're going to do really well. I'm not worried about a hyper-competitive market with regards to the folks in our mastermind. I'm not worried about the people in our EXP group because they're surrounded by excellence. People who can perform when it gets tough. And the downside is not tough. It's the upside. How do I know? I'm in so many different real estate agent Facebook groups. And I'll tell you, the theme starting in January of this year has been, I don't know how I'm going to survive the year because there's so little inventory on the market. And I'm telling you right now, this only gets worse. It's only going to get more competitive. However, there's a massive upside on this. I was hanging out with some friends this weekend, and the financial advice that I'm now doling out, and I started this late last year. I'm in a couple of different men-only groups on Facebook. These guys they're just men's groups, just guys talking about guy stuff. Cars, money, all that sort of thing. And I get asked a lot about financial advice. There's some very high net worth guys. In fact, I'd argue it's probably got some of the highest net worth men's groups out there. And a lot of these younger guys are asking the older guys, like, hey, financially, what's some basic financial advice? In fact, a guy asked today, he said, I'm about to turn 30 next week. It's kind of interesting. I'm starting to turn 30 next week. I'm getting a little nervous. Like, is the best behind me or what? And I'm like, oh, you have no idea, dude. Your 40s and 50s are the best time. But he's asking a lot of questions about finances and what should I do next? And I said, look, you got a decent job, good credit score, a little bit of money in the bank. The most important thing you do right now is buy a single family house to live in. That is the most important thing you need to do right now. There is nothing more important in your life, aside from feeding your family, than it is to buy a single family house for you to live in. I'm telling you that right now. There is no smarter financial decision out there than buying a single family house. There are none. Not Bitcoin, not Ethereum, not Doge, not Tesla options. There is nothing more prudent than buying a single family house for you to live in. The median home price in Houston went up $40,000 in a year. Meaning the same house last year appreciated, what is that, $3,500 a month? Let's do the numbers on that. What's $40,000 divided by 12? $3,300. Your average, look, I'm not talking about a sexy house here. I'm talking about a 3-2, beige walls, 6,000 square foot lot, HOA community, 15 to 20-year-old home. Looks like all the other little houses in the neighborhood. Nothing sexy. This isn't pool with a grotto and a 10,000 square foot lot and a 6-car garage. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the average standard little house. First-time home buyer house. Every month in the last 12 months, it got $3,300 more expensive. If you're a landlord and you bought that house and rented it, you made $4,000 a month. There is nothing more important. If you do not have a single family house that you live in, that you bought with a mortgage, you need to stop everything you're doing right now and buy it. There is nothing more important in your life. Nothing. They're appreciating $4,000 a month. This is the same conversation I had with this guy this morning. About to turn 30, man. What do I need to do? You need to buy a single family house right now. There is nothing more important. How do you win? Winning long term requires two things: good offense and good defense. Offense is building your income, building your net worth. Maybe you're a real estate investor. Maybe you run a business. Maybe you got a really sweet job and there's opportunities for you to move up. Maybe you're in sales. That's offense, good offense. You've got to be doing that. But on the defense side, you got to be watching the backside. And if there's one thing that I think is very scary out there, is how expensive real estate's getting. Real estate is getting really expensive. I'm looking at A-Rock over here. A-Rock's 21 years old. I'm like, dude, it's going to be tough to buy that first single family house if you wait till you're 30. It's tough now. I used to get laughed out of the room when I'd say this, but I didn't last week. I said the median home price in Houston will double in less than 5 years. That means that, by the way, if you haven't kept up, the median home price in Houston is almost $300,000. It's $290,000. In less than 5 years, it will be $600,000. I wish it wasn't. I don't want to say I wish for a crash because real estate crashes are terrible. But the big problem here is real estate's getting too expensive. We get back from break, we're going to talk more. It's Jason Bible, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. Oh, yeah. Welcome back, Jason Bible, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. My ego really loves the "see, I told you so." If you guys are familiar with Rush Limbaugh, he used to say, "See, I told you so." He'd make a prediction, and they would go back and play it on his show, and they'd say, "See, told you guys what was going to happen." Back in 2018, I got on the radio. I talked about apartments and single family. I had to pull that radio show up. Back in October 18, may have been September. But I got on the show and I said, if you think real estate's expensive now, just wait. Just wait. How you win in this game is you buy as much real estate as fast as humanly possible. Had a guy in one of our events last week, and he said, "Jason, are you familiar with house hacking?" This is something that came out of the Bigger Pockets group probably 7-8 years ago. And the way it works is you buy a multi-unit dwelling, so 4 units all the way down to 2. You buy it, live in one unit, and then rent the others. And then when you have the cash, then you go buy another one. You do it over and over and over again. And he said, "What do you think about that?" I said, "That worked great 7 years ago." Well, why doesn't it work now? Because real estate is getting so expensive, you will be priced out of the market before you can save up enough money to buy the next one. 10% a year in appreciation on a $300,000 asset is another $3,000 a year, or $3,000 almost a month. It's $30,000 a year. Your anxiety right now should not be, "Jason, there's no deals and I think there's a crash coming." Your anxiety should be, "My God, I can't buy these fast enough." There are realtors, mortgage companies, title companies, insurance companies that are going to go out of business in the next year or so simply because they can't get enough volume. There's not as many houses for sale. I talked about this in one of my presentations last week. By the way, if you guys invite me to speak, I only have one presentation I'm doing for the next 2 years. I'll update it every month, but it's going to be the same presentation. If you think real estate's expensive now, just wait. And I'll update it with all the new data. If all of the houses in forbearance went into foreclosure today, we'd still be short 1.5 million homes. Not to get back to a normal market, just to satisfy demand. If everything went to foreclosure today, we'd still be short 1.5 million homes. We're 4 million homes short in the United States. There are only 2.6 million in forbearance. If all of those went to foreclosure, we're still a mill short. So the whole idea there's a real estate crash coming is completely false. You have got to get out there and start buying this stuff now. Texas is crazy. And that real estate's not going to stop. We have 40 years worth of data that tells us what the Texas real estate market's going to do. As the rest of the country starts opening up and the economy starts moving again, like really moving, more companies will be relocating to Texas. If you think our real estate's expensive now, or here now, just wait. There are a lot of Americans in Washington, in California, in New York, that don't want to live there anymore. They were all on board the lockdowns when it was a couple of weeks, maybe till Easter last year, but after that, they're done. Like, they're just done with all this nonsense. They don't want to do it anymore. Like, you cannot wait. There are a lot of people that passed on deals last year or in late 2019 because they were, quote, too expensive. Those deals are now $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 more expensive. And it's not going to stop. I drive by all these neighborhoods. I call Rob. So let me tell you about my commute in the morning. I come over from the west side of town, and I drive by the house that I'm rehabbing that I'm just praying I get to move into by June. And check on the work. Plumbers were there this morning doing all their plumber stuff, doing their Super Mario Brothers thing. So they're doing their plumber thing. And I drive around the neighborhood. And what's crazy is, I think my house, when it's all done, might be worth $400,000. We bought it for $2 million. We're probably going to end up putting $150 into it, including the backyard. I think we're spending $50 just on the backyard. This property makes no financial sense. I mean, I'm going to have equity in it, don't get me wrong, but it really makes no financial sense. We're spending $100,000 on 1,200 square feet. It's going to be awesome, but it's not what I would call a wise investment decision. I'll have 50, 60 grand in equity. Heck, by the time I probably move into it, it'll be $100,000, right? But I drive the neighborhood around there, and there's a bunch of new developments going up. These houses are 1,500 to 1,700 square feet. The lot is the size of a postage stamp. Like, it's just wide enough so the dog has a place to go to the bathroom in the backyard, and then there's like a little fence on each side, and each side is just wide enough you can get your shoulders through so you can shimmy between the fence and the house. And then there's a driveway, 2-car garage. These are not sexy houses. They might have a little stone on them. Most of it is hardy. That postage stamp size lot and that little house, it's 1,700 square feet, starts at $300,000. It's 3 blocks from my house. My house is 1,200 square feet on a 10,000 square foot lot with a pool that's almost as big as the house. It's beautiful. Those houses are very close in price, if you can believe that. So what that tells me is someone's willing to pay $350,000, $375,000 for a little bit newer home on a much smaller lot. There's also a lot of builder incentives there. But once that market equalizes and those houses have got a little age on them, we're going to see rapid price appreciation for existing homes, especially ones that are older, 5 years or older, because they've got a lot on them. I made this prediction. I'll give you guys one. For those of you who can write checks, get ready. Y'all are going to love this because it worked last time. I said, go out to I-10, go straight out I-10 West. Anything inside of 99, under 150 grand, buy it. 5 or 6 of y'all did this and then sent me emails about 2 months later and said, oh my gosh, this worked like magic. I can name 3 guys right now, but I won't do it on the radio show. I said, go out to 99, go take 99, get to 99 I-10 and drive I-10 back into Houston. Anything below 150 grand, buy it. I hesitate to say I don't think there's anything on the market below 150 grand. Just go a mile or two either side of I-10, buy all of it. I said that, I don't know, probably 8-9 months ago. A couple of guys went out and did it. By the time they bought them, rehabbed them, refied them, the houses were worth almost $200,000. So let me give you another little pro tip. Anything inside the Beltway inside the Beltway on the west side of town that's a 9,000 square foot lot or larger, under 150, buy it. All right, we get back from the break. I'm going to talk more about how to win. It's Jason Bible, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. There's nothing out there.
I've been looking around for like 160 and lower.
Yeah. I think what you ought to do is you can kind of live in one of those transitioning neighborhoods. I just find anything under 160, and if that little area of town isn't now 2 streets over could be kind of rough, but as long as that block's pretty nice, just buy that.
I've been noticing that everywhere. I seen a house in Magnolia. It was going for 160. I went to go check it out, and I went down a couple blocks. New construction.
Yep.
Apartments.
Mm-hmm.
Just looked revitalized. And I took my dad with me. He used to actually live there. He's like, "What the hell is going on?"
Yeah.
Like, everybody's moving here, dude. That's what
Yep.
I'm checking out.
All right, let's fire it up. Welcome back, Jason Bible, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. How to win, that's what we're talking about today. I made a prediction nearly a year ago. Go down I-10 till you hit 99, turn around, come back. Everything below $150,000, buy it. About 6 of you guys did it. Now everyone keeps asking me, like, what's the next prediction? What's the next tip? I'll tell you right now, everything inside the Beltway. Maybe it doesn't have to be exactly inside the Beltway, but let's say a mile radius. So you can take the Beltway just a mile outside the Beltway on the west side of town. And how I define the west side of town is 45. So if you go right down 45, everything west, if there's a 9,000 square foot lot or larger under 150 grand, buy it. Just buy it. I'm sitting there watching in the house I'm staying in now is one of our Airbnbs. They're doing a rehab 3 doors down. Now, I don't think that neighborhood, maybe in 20 years, but I don't think that neighborhood's going to be one where they tear the houses down, do new construction. The lots are just too small. They're 6,000, I bet, 6,500. Yeah, I know you townhome guys out there love slapping these things on at 3,000 square feet, but I think the city is going to get involved, all the cities and the HOAs, and say, hey, minimum lot size is 5,000. The city's already done that. And it won't surprise me if there comes a point where they go, hey, minimum lot size 7,500. Just because we don't want our cities to look like New York, where these brownstones are all slapped up against each other. I think that will eventually happen. I could totally see that happen in Spring Branch. There is nothing more demoralizing than having this beautiful house and a big backyard, and then the guy next to you sells to a townhome developer, puts up 6 townhomes that all can see in your backyard. That's one of the reasons I don't live in the Heights. That happens in the Heights all the time. It doesn't happen in the historic section of the Heights, but the problem with the historic sections of the Heights is that the lots aren't big enough to have a nice sized house and a really cool backyard. So if you want to live anywhere close to the city, you're really kind of in the Spring Branch area, Memorial. West U is gone. That's not really a place you want to. I guess there's some places in River Oaks, but it just gets too city life. Let me put it that way. You want a little space. You want a little elbow room. Everybody's going to want that. Here's the crazy thing. All the folks that are moving here from out of state, they're all used to living like bees. Love living on top of each other. Like a little colony of bees. When they get here, they may buy a place in the Heights and they go, wow, I got all this room. I got a 5,000 square foot lot for under $1 million, 2,500 square foot house. This is great. And then they start going to their friends' houses that are 10, 15 minutes away and they go, Independence Heights isn't that bad. I kind of like Spring Branch. Got a little bit more elbow room. You got a 10,000 square foot lot. That will naturally happen. They'll tell all their friends in California and New York that they bought a ranch because it's 11,000 square foot lot. Like Linkwood Terrace is full of these things. You guys are familiar with that. It's right there at Buffalo Speedway and 610 near the Med Center. This is why I'm still long on Westbury. I think Westbury is an amazing neighborhood. They can just get rid of that whole flooding thing. I looked at it, almost bought. There is a 6,500 square foot one story. I think it's still on the market, and it's on the corner, and it is awesome. It's got the main house. They got a pool house, and the pool fills up like almost the entire backyard. I mean, it's like a party house from the 70s, and I want to say it's like a 18,000 square foot lot. I'm like, man, I could see we're going to set the DJ up over here. Then we're going to do this in the extra house. Then we're going to build like a little kitchenette so we can have like like a chef in there. And then we'll have a serving. I already had this place planned for the parties. But really, the real draw was the size of the lot. I lost a deal, and I kind of go back every now and then that I shouldn't have let this deal go. But it was an acre in Spring Branch, and it was a great price. And I'm like, I think I'll pass. I found this other house, which worked out well. But every now and then I think of that house. It's on Friendship. Great little house. Needed a ton of work. Big lot. We were going to turn it into a whole oasis. But the lot size is going to become important. When you're looking at properties and you've got a choice between a 5,000 square foot lot and an 8,000 square foot lot, you're going to want to go with the larger one if you're inside the Beltway. Or let's say near the Beltway. If you're getting it cheap enough, let's say you're 99 and in, 150 and below. Those properties are gone. You probably can go to 175 at this point if it's got a little bit bigger lot. But how do you win? Step one is you got to get that single family house for you to live in. I can't tell you how important it is. The math is screaming, if you're buying a house at the median home price or below, buy it now. Our median appreciation is 16%. What does that mean? It means that 50% of the houses have appreciated 16% or less, but it also means 50% of the houses appreciated 16% or more. Rob keeps telling me I cannot talk about what our expected returns are in the fund because of the appreciation. But I'll tell you this, the vast majority, I don't want to say all because I'm picturing my Excel spreadsheet with all of our assets in the fund. I don't think, unless it's a fourplex, I don't think we have anything above 250. I know we don't have anything above 300. No, we've got one and we're going to sell it. We have one house that I can think of that's above $300,000. But here's what I can tell you. All those houses below $300,000 are appreciating at nearly 30% a year. That means that $150,000 house that we bought a year ago is now a $195,000 house. That house appreciated $45,000 in 12 months. Here's what's crazy. The median income in the United States is about $65,000. The house appreciated nearly as much as a four-person family makes in a year. Now, people ask me, well, Jason, how can that be? I mean, now these people can't afford the house. I'm like, you're right. Here's the crazy thing. If you bought a house 5 or 6 years ago and you still live in that house, ask yourself if you could afford to live there if you had to buy the house that's on the market next door. If the answer is no, this is why it's so important to buy your single-family house now. Because it's going to get you into a neighborhood that you can't afford a couple years from now. When you buy a single-family house, it allows you to at least limit the amount or the increase in taxes from your homestead. Your insurance will stay about the same. It'll go up a little bit every year, but not a whole lot. But your mortgage will stay the same for 30 years. That's what I'm talking about, good defense. You got to play good defense here. And good defense is limiting your downside. I'll do a whole show on this at one point. But my first private lender, and he's still lending to us today, I've got, I don't know if Rob were here, he could tell us. We probably have a mil two with him right now. Maybe $1.3 million. Really good guy. He's been lending to me since I started full-time real estate investing in 2013. Great guy. Does a lot of lending with a lot of folks around town. we're having lunch one day, and he says something really profound to me. He says, Jason, have you ever considered bankruptcy? Let's just call him John. And I'm like, John, what have I considered bankruptcy? Like, what? I'm making all my payments. We're doing really well. What do you mean? And he said, actually, you know what? I'll tell you exactly what he said here at the start of the next segment. Jason Bible, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. All right. Welcome to the show, Texas Real Estate Radio Network's Jason Bible. So I'm sitting there with my private lender, sharp guy, super sharp guy, one of the smartest guys I've ever met in real estate. And he said something really profound to me. He said, have you ever considered bankruptcy? And I was like, I mean, we're doing good. Do you know something I don't? I'm like, there's money in the checking account. We're flipping houses. We're wholesaling them. We're doing like 10 to 15 deals a month. I mean, we're doing really good. I don't know what you're talking about, man. John, what are you talking about? So I said, he says, have you ever considered bankruptcy? And I said, no. And he said, most people don't. And that's when it hit me. I was like, oh, now I got it. Have you ever considered bankruptcy? No. He said, most people don't. And I said, well, is that something you should plan for? And he said, absolutely. Before everybody started hating Donald Trump, one of the most famous things he'd said, or at least one of the things that I really like that he said, is he said, look, you plan for the downside. If you plan for big losses, all you'll ever do is break even or make money. Now, you have to be really careful with this mindset because then you get so risk averse, you don't do anything. And I'll tell you right now, not doing something is way more risky than doing something. In fact, inaction has destroyed more success than action ever has. So many people are just sitting on the sidelines right now, waiting. All of you that waited to buy a rental property in the last year lost $40,000. If you bought a house and paid 100% retail and put $40,000 down on a $200,000 house, that house is worth $40,000 more. You would have $80,000 in equity. Your $40,000 down plus the $40,000 in equity in appreciation, which comes out to $80,000 in total equity. You lost $40,000 in last year by inaction. If you've been listening to the show for a year, if you've been listening to the show for 2 years, you lost 80 on every single family house. I finished my slide deck with this slide, and I said, every single family house you don't buy, you're losing $3,600 a month in appreciation and cash flow. The math is real simple at this point. So John says, have you ever considered bankruptcy? And I said, no. And he said, you should. So I started digging around in bankruptcy law. Bankruptcy law in Texas is hilarious. Start reading bankruptcy law. You're allowed to have so many heads of cattle, so many horses, so many cars. In other words, your creditors can't get at some of that stuff. Now, I'm not saying we're filing for bankruptcy, but it's a good practice. A lot of people fear loss, but what they really fear is the unknown. So if you're really scared about losing everything, let's talk about what that looks like. And then you put together a plan. Well, if this happens, then I'll do this, then I'll do that. And then you start to feel some comfort behind it. You go, oh, okay, well, this isn't the worst thing. It's not good. Let's be honest, it's not good, but it's not the worst thing in the world. It's one of the reasons I like to read up on a lot of health stuff. What happens if you have a heart attack? People will tell you like, oh, don't discuss these things, Jason. I'm like, no, let's talk about it. We're going to do a whole men's health show at some point here, and I hope I can get it all scheduled here next month or so. But we're going to talk about all the bad stuff. And then we'll say, okay, this is as worse as it gets. This is the worst it will get. All right, so how do we mitigate those things in the future? That's why whenever someone says, well, Jason, there's a huge real estate crash coming, then I'll say, well, how much real estate do you own? Sometimes they'll say just their own house, or sometimes they'll say a large portfolio, and I'll say, well, then why don't you sell everything right now? If you're telling me the worst is coming, why aren't you renting? And that's usually where the conversation ends. Because if you believe something really bad is coming down the pike, is coming for you, then let's start doing things now to keep it from getting worse. Jason, there's a real estate crash coming. Then sell the house you live in and go rent next door. You're telling me there's going to be a 50% correction? Sell the house you're in now, move into the rent house next door, wait for the market to drop 50%, buy your house back, and you just made 50% on your money. That's how I know these gurus are full of nonsense. That's how I know all these real estate guys are just full of it. There's a crash coming, bro. Really? Why do you own real estate? Why would you own something that's about to plummet 50%? That's like saying, oh, I'm going to buy this car, really great car, but it crashes 50% of the time. Why would you do that? It makes no logical sense. Okay, so you really don't believe a crash is coming. All right, so now we can talk about what's really going to happen. What you're really scared of is that you can't compete in this marketplace. That's what you're scared of. Because when you can't compete, then you've got to face your own inadequacies. And most people can't do that. Because it requires a whole level of humility that most people are not ready for. One of the reasons we like starting businesses is because we get to learn new stuff. Me personally, I like that feeling when I'm new at something again. We're starting this insurance company. You guys know we got an insurance company started back in December. We're learning all kinds of stuff about insurance as a business. Now, I used to be the risk manager for a large organization here in town, so I understand insurance on a fundamental basis. But I don't understand. I never had to deal with the business end of it. So we're getting to learn all the business stuff right now. One of the reasons that we're building an EXP team here in Houston is because I want to know what it's like to be a brand new real estate agent. I've closed almost 2,000 deals at this point, and I've never done it as an agent. In fact, I was having a meeting with a couple of guys before I got on the show. And I'm going to go out and I'm totally going to be a listing agent or a buyer's agent. I just want to give it a try, just so I can say, okay, this is how it works. Now, am I going to get my teeth kicked in and I'm not going to get listings and we're going to miss out on, we're going to make offers on properties I'm not going to get? Yeah, that's totally going to happen, but that's part of the deal. The reason I keep doing that in all these different businesses is because it's really good for you from a mental standpoint. One of the reasons we started this show back in 2016 is so you guys could see us grow. I used to listen to all these real estate shows that talk about winning and being your best self and being a millionaire and all that. And I'm like, dude, you started 40 years ago. Like, nobody even remembers that. You don't know what it's like to be new again. And if you're not doing new stuff all the time, you don't know what it's like to be a new investor, a new anybody. This weekend, I spent 14 hours on a lake with Boy Scouts learning canoes. Now, if you've been in a canoe before, yeah, you've kind of canoed around. But we were doing things with whitewater rafting canoes. We're literally going to canoe over 100 miles in June. We were using one-person canoes, two-person canoes. We were doing rescue drills. We were doing some wildlife emergency response. We're doing all kinds of stuff. And I was watching these young dudes. They were getting their canoeing merit badge, which yours truly has his canoeing merit badge, by the way. And it was a ton of fun to sit there and watch that whole process unfold. But what makes the young mind so much better than the older mind is the fact that it's malleable. And that's the only way you're going to win in this marketplace. You have to be flexible. We get back from the break. We'll talk more about how to win. It's Jason Bible, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. I feel like it was 4, but that was 3, wasn't it? Oh, that was 4? Oh, jeez. Okay. All right. Thanks for watching, guys.